What would you do if the only person who could save your dying child was the same person who looked at you like you were less than human? Jamal Carter had never felt so small as he stood in the marble lobby of Kingsley Tower with his daughter's medical file shaking in his hands, while security guards watched him like a criminal instead of a desperate father. His little girl Lena was dying, and time was running out because the surgery she needed was so expensive that no ordinary man could ever dream of paying for it, and every hospital kept telling him the same cold words that broke him more each day. Ava Kingsley walked into the lobby like a queen, entering her palace, her white suit sharp, her blonde hair tied tight, her blue eyes colder than winter, and her steps echoing with the power of a woman who owned half the city. People moved out of her way like she was untouchable, but when her eyes landed on Jamal, she froze for half a heartbeat, as if offended that a black single dad dared to stand in her path. Jamal gathered the courage of a father on the edge of losing the only family he had and whispered her name with trembling hope, but Ava's expression hardened the moment she realized he wanted help. She hated interruptions, she hated noise, and she hated people like him, the kind who weren't born rich, the kind who didn't fit her world, the kind she believed should know their place. Jamal dropped to his knees in front of her, and the entire lobby gasped, but he didn't care because Lena's heartbeat was fading and pride couldn't save her life. Ava looked down at him with disgust as security reached for his arms, but before they grabbed him, a weak cough came from behind his shoulder and her eyes shifted to the small girl on the wheelchair with tubes taped to her thin arms. For the first time, a crack formed in Ava's icy silence, and she stepped closer, studying Lena's pale face and trembling lips, as if calculating something inside her head. Dr. Serena Holt hurried into the lobby, calling Jamal's name and explaining Lena's condition, but Ava interrupted her with a cold, quiet voice that made everyone freeze because she said she would pay for the surgery in full. Jamal burst into tears of gratitude, falling at her feet again, but Ava didn't smile, she didn't comfort him, she only stared at Lena with an unreadable expression, like she wasn't moved by kindness, but by something darker. Dr. Holt felt something wrong in Ava's calm tone, but no one dared question a billionaire who had just saved a child's life, except Jamal, who wiped his tears and whispered why she was helping them, but Ava only said that every miracle has a price. If you want to know how this story continues, and how one act of kindness turns into the most dangerous trap, then stay with this story and subscribe, because what happens next will shock you. The elevator doors closed around her, leaving Jamal with more fear than hope, because something about Ava's voice sounded like a warning and not a blessing, and as he stood in the quiet hallway, he felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine, as if his life had just been pushed onto a path he could not control anymore. Jamal walked back toward Lena's hospital room, feeling the heaviness of Ava's promise sitting like a stone on his chest, while the image of her eyes kept replaying in his mind, because her kindness looked rehearsed, not real. He stepped inside the dim room, where machines beeped softly, and Lena slept peacefully, unaware of the storm forming outside her fragile world, and Jamal sat beside her, holding her tiny hand, whispering that everything would be okay, even though he didn't believe his own words. Dr. Serena Holt entered the room quietly with a chart in her hand and a serious expression on her face, and she asked him gently what Ava Kingsley wanted, because she had seen the billionaire walk out with that cold smile she always wore when she wanted something in return. Jamal told her everything about the surgery approval and how fast Ava agreed, but Serena's eyes widened with worry because nothing in this hospital moved fast unless someone powerful demanded it, and she warned him to stay careful since Ava never did anything for free. Before Jamal could ask what she meant, the hospital intercom called Serena urgently, and she left with a tense look, leaving Jamal alone again with his thoughts that swirled like dark smoke. Hours passed slowly until the door swung open and two security guards walked in with a hospital administrator who handed Jamal a paper and said the surgery had been approved and scheduled for first thing in the morning, which shocked him because only billionaires received such priority, and he felt gratitude and fear mixing inside him like poison and relief at the same time. When they left, Jamal held Lena's hand tighter, feeling her small fingers warm against his palm, and he whispered to her that she would live, and he would fight for her no matter what Ava wanted in return. Ava, meanwhile, watched everything from her office across the street through the wide glass windows, smiling, as if she had just set a trap perfectly, and she whispered to herself that Jamal would soon understand what it meant to owe her a life. As night fell, the hospital lights turned soft and quiet, but Jamal could not sleep because Ava's voice kept echoing in his head, and each echo felt darker than the last, and he sensed that saving his daughter might cost him something he never expected. The truth was Ava had chosen Lena not out of kindness, but out of obsession, because she had watched Jamal for months and believed he was the perfect candidate for her secret plan, and she would not stop until she owned every part of his future. If you want to know what she does next and what Jamal must face in the darkest night ahead, make sure you stay with this story and drop a comment and hit subscribe so you never miss the truth hidden inside powerful people. Jamal kissed Lena's forehead and closed his eyes, praying for protection, unaware that Ava was already walking back into the hospital, preparing something that would change everything. And the moment she stepped inside, her cold confidence returned like a mask sliding over her face, because she saw the world as a chessboard and Jamal as a desperate man too powerless to notice the trap forming around him. And Ava moved through the quiet hallway with the precision of someone who had manipulated entire boardrooms and crushed entire companies without blinking. And she approached Dr. Serena Holt, who was reviewing Lena's scans, and Ava smiled a soft, fake smile that hid her true intentions as she said she wanted to help even more, which instantly made Serena suspicious, because she knew that billionaires never gave anything without taking something far larger in return. And while Serena respected wealth, she respected ethics more, so she quietly watched Ava, waiting to understand why her interest was growing this fast. And Ava leaned over the medical file and tapped her finger on the page, explaining calmly that she wanted a very specific type of experimental procedure done on Lena, a procedure that Serena knew was extremely risky. But Ava spoke with so much authority that any outsider would assume she was Lena's legal guardian and not a stranger who had walked in less than 20 minutes earlier. And when Serena refused Ava's demand, Ava's mask cracked for a moment, revealing a flash of cold fury before she composed herself again and leaned in, whispering that she could replace the entire hospital staff by tomorrow morning, which made Serena's heart pound, because she realized that this woman was capable of anything. And Ava left before Serena could question further, walking down the hall with a dangerous calm as she dialed her private legal team, ordering them to prepare a temporary guardianship petition using a loophole that allowed emergency intervention if a parent was emotionally compromised. And she knew Jamal's financial struggle, exhaustion, and fear would make him appear unstable on paper. And she smiled, because to her the world was not about fairness, but about who had the sharper weapons. And meanwhile, Jamal sat by Lena's bedside, still holding her tiny hand, unaware of the storm forming behind him. And Serena rushed into the room, breathing fast, and she gently warned Jamal that Ava was planning something terrifying. And Jamal's heart crashed, because he had trusted Ava even through his fear. And Serena told him that Ava had no right to ask for procedures without consent, and that she sensed something dark in her intentions. And Jamal stood up, trembling, because he realized that Ava was not his savior, but a predator hunting in the disguise of kindness. And before he could process anything, Ava reappeared in the doorway, holding signed papers and wearing a calm smile that did not reach her eyes. And she walked toward Lena's bed, as if she already owned everything in the room. And her voice was soft but poisonous as she told Jamal that she had arranged something that would secure Lena's future forever. And when Jamal asked what she meant, Ava touched Lena's small hand and said that saving Lena meant ensuring Jamal remained tied to her permanently, because life debts were not free. And Jamal felt his entire world tilt as he finally understood Ava's plan, and that her help was not kindness, but a contract he never signed. And Serena stepped between them, ready to fight, because she knew Ava's power was real and dangerous. And Jamal realized that the hand reaching toward his daughter was not a blessing, but a cage closing around both of them. And he whispered to himself that he would not let anyone use Lena, not even the richest woman in the city. And Ava smiled slowly, because she loved the taste of fear, and whispered that she would return in the morning with the court order, and then everything would belong to her. Ava Kingsley walked through the cold hospital hallway with the confidence of a woman who owned the world, because in her mind, she already owned Jamal, his future, and even his daughter's beating heart. Jamal stood in the doorway of Lena's room, feeling a sharp chill crawl up his spine, because he finally understood that Ava's kindness was never kindness. It was a cage waiting to close on him. Dr. Serena Holt rushed toward him, sensing danger in his trembling hands and frantic eyes. And when he told her the truth, that Ava planned to take Lena, using the law. Serena's jaw tightened with furious disbelief. She whispered that Ava had done this before to a different family, using money, influence, and fear, and no one had ever been brave enough to fight back until now. Jamal looked at his sleeping daughter, her small chest rising weakly, and he realized he was done being afraid, done being judged, done being treated like he was less, because he was black and poor and alone. Serena told him they had one chance, and only one, because once Ava arrived with the court order, it would be almost impossible to stop her, so they had to move now. She grabbed Lena's medical file, printed every document showing Jamal's legal rights, and then handed him a folder that she said could save his daughter if they found the courage to use it. Jamal held those papers like they were life itself, and he whispered a promise to his little girl that no billionaire, no courtroom, no racist executive would ever take her away from him. Serena called a judge she trusted, waking him at nearly 2 in the morning, telling him this was an emergency involving medical manipulation and exploitation, and that a child's life and a father's rights were in danger. The judge agreed to meet them at his office before sunrise, and Jamal felt hope for the first time in hours, a hope so raw it almost hurt. They moved Lena, carefully placing her in a wheelchair and covering her with hospital blankets, while Jamal carried her small backpack, the one with the cartoon stickers she loved. Every step toward the parking lot felt like walking through fire, because he kept imagining Ava's face, cold, sharp, calculating, a predator disguised in pearls. Meanwhile, Ava sat in her mansion sipping wine, drafting her court order, smiling as she rehearsed the speech she would give the press about how she saved a poor child whose unfit father could not provide. She believed the world would celebrate her, not knowing Jamal was already rewriting the ending. At the judge's office, Lena slept, while Jamal stood in front of the desk, explaining everything with a breaking voice, and Serena stood beside him, confirming every detail. The judge reviewed the files, the reports, the timestamps, and Ava's signed document, then leaned back with a look of disgust, because he saw exactly what she had tried to do. He signed an emergency protection order, giving Jamal full guardianship, strengthening his parental rights, and blocking any attempt by Ava to interfere. Jamal felt his knees weaken with relief as he held the papers that turned fear into victory. Serena placed a hand on his shoulder, telling him he had just saved his daughter twice in one night, once medically and once legally. Morning came and Ava stormed into the hospital with security, lawyers, and her usual arrogance, ready to take what was never hers, but she stopped when she saw the empty room. Before she could react, Serena stepped forward, holding the judge's orders up like a shield, and told her Jamal and Lena were gone, protected by the law, protected by truth, protected from her. Ava's face twisted with rage, because she had lost control for the first time in her perfect, powerful life, and no amount of money could fix it. She demanded to know where they were going, but Serena only said one line that cut through the hallway like lightning. They're going somewhere you can never reach, a future you don't control. Across town, Jamal sat with Lena in a small apartment, safe, warm, and finally free, feeling the weight of the world lift from his shoulders as he watched her breathe peacefully. He whispered that she would grow up knowing she was loved, not owned, and that no billionaire would ever shape her destiny. He looked out the window at the rising sun and smiled, because the world had tried to break him, but he was still standing stronger than ever. And somewhere, deep inside, he knew that one day Lena would hear the whole story, and she would know her father fought harder than anyone ever expected him to. Power is not money. Power is love, courage, and standing up even when the world expects you to stay silent. If you felt this moment in your heart, drop a comment, share your thoughts, and hit subscribe for more powerful stories that deserve to be heard.